Hello, it's Sydney and welcome to another video. Today I have a ton of books to get rid of, and my sole purpose for getting rid of these books is A, I want more room on my shelves because that just means more books that I can buy, and B, either I already have a special edition copy of these books, or they're books that I've tried reading and didn't really enjoy, or they're books that I just read the whole thing and don't want to keep because I probably wouldn't reread or recommend them. Absolutely nothing against any of these books. If you like one of these books that I'm unhauling, I love that for you, but I just don't really want to keep these. So in today's video, I'll just kind of talk you through each of the books that I'm unhauling, and then I'm going to be going to my local used bookstore later today to drop all these off. And I think it would be helpful just to give you a little check-in of how much I'll get for these books. I'm not expecting it to be a lot at all, but honestly, even just a little bit is something better than nothing. So I'll let you guys know how that goes. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Okay, the first book that I'm unhauling is Water for Elephants. I don't really know much about the plot of this book other than it's set in, I believe, a circus type environment. I think it sounds cool, but to be honest, I picked this up over a year ago and I just hadn't felt like I wanted to pick it up and read. I feel like there might be a movie for this. Something in my head, some bell is ringing that this was turned into a movie, and if that's the case, I could be completely just making this up, but if that's the case, I think I'd probably just rather watch the movie. Also, I don't know if you can hear, but like outside my window, someone's flying like a drone or like a toy helicopter or something in the street, so hopefully that doesn't completely throw you off. But anyway, this does look interesting. I believe it's a fantasy. It says a gritty, sensual, and charged with dark secrets involving love, murder, and a majestic mute heroine, which sounds cool, but I just really haven't felt drawn to this enough to pick it up and read, so getting rid of that one. Second book I'm unhauling is Poison Study by Maria V. Snyder. I did enjoy this book. I gave it 3 stars. I would recommend it. I think it's a good, fun YA fantasy romance, but it was just a 3-star read for me and I can't see myself rereading it, so just gonna make some room on my shelves by giving this one away. In the premise of this book, we have our main female character, Yelena, and she starts off this story on trial for unaliving someone, and instead of going to get executed, she decides to take sort of like a plea deal situation where she goes to work for the commander as his poison tester. So basically she's just testing poisons all day long to see if someone's trying to poison the commander. So it's a very dangerous job, but she chooses that instead of being sentenced to be executed. So we've got a romance that unfolds between her and the commander's assassin, which is really, really interesting. I loved the premise of this book and I thought it was just okay, but part of it did fall flat for me. It was a bit too YA. And I think with such an interesting concept as being a poison tester and falling in love with the person who's training you and isn't supposed to care if you live or die, I feel like this could have been a little bit better. So again, I would still recommend, but not something I just want to keep forever on my shelves. Second book is One for My Enemy by Olive E. Blake. This is actually a Barnes & Noble exclusive edition. It's very, very pretty. I'm actually obsessed with this cover. The inside art is really pretty. This is essentially an urban fantasy set in modern New York City between 2 families of witches who are rivals. It's almost like a modern Romeo and Juliet retelling with a touch of magic and fantasy. Again, really cool premise, but I just struggled with feeling so bored about halfway through this book. I didn't really love the second half or how the story wrapped up. I feel like things just kind of took a turn and felt confusing and just didn't make a lot of sense. I will say Olive E. Blake's writing is absolutely stunning and I really, really loved that aspect of it. I'm definitely going to pick up more books from her. I actually have Masters of Death on my fall TBR, which is going to be really fun to read. Hopefully that one kind of meets my expectations and gives what I want it to give, but this one just unfortunately did not for me. Honestly, I'm so sad because I'm looking through this and this is just a stunning book, but like the art, really, really pretty. Someone else will enjoy this. I am happy for it to go to a home where someone can really just appreciate it a bit more than I did. Again, Olive E. Blake is an incredible author. I am so excited to try more of her books, but I just don't think this one did it for me. Next is Nettle and Bone. I picked this one up sometime last year in a bookstore, having heard nothing about it. I was honestly just drawn to the cover. It looks like a it is a gothic fairy tale retelling by T. Kingfisher. It says, "This isn't the kind of fairy tale where the princess marries a prince. It's the one where she kills him." This is a good book. I don't know. I'm struggling with this one because, again, I really love the premise, but I probably should have read this physically, but I read the audiobook and something about the audiobook just wasn't hitting for me. I don't know if it was the narrator, or maybe this is just one of those books that's a better experience when you're sitting down and reading it physically. I personally have a hard time getting into audiobooks when it's fantasy because I just miss information. I find myself getting distracted. I do better with audiobooks that are like very simple plots and, you know, memoirs or thrillers or self-help books, something that's not so complex that you can't like lose your train of thought for 2 minutes. So I don't know, maybe I need to try this one again in the future, but if I do, I'll probably just get it on my Kindle. I will say, if you like cozy fantasy that's actually a bit on the darker side, I do really think you would like this, especially going into fall. I think it's a good spooky gothic fairy tale retelling that could be really interesting. So I still recommend this. I think you should give it a shot. It's a pretty quick read as well. It's not even 250 pages. So this might be a good one to add to your fall TBR. Next we have A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. I actually loved this book. I rated it 5 stars. It was one of my favorite reads last year, but I now have a special edition copy on my shelf that is signed. It's beautiful, it's stunning, and this is just the original hardback that I just don't need 2 copies of, so I'm going to unhaul this one and keep the other one. Then we have Starling House by Alex E. Harrow. This is another Barnes & Noble exclusive edition. Beautiful hardcover, really pretty inside edges. I thought this book was okay. I don't know, again, I think I rated it 3 stars. Starting off, this book was really strong. I loved the characters, I loved the atmosphere. The story and the plot sort of centers around a haunted house that's run by a family who is very mysterious in the town where this story takes place. There's a lot of family history, a lot of secrets, and our main character, Opal, takes a job to go take care of the house. She's very curious about the secrets that lie inside. She's very curious about the man who kind of runs and takes care of the house. And this is another one of those books where I'll definitely pick up more from this author because I loved the writing. I really loved the prose and the character development and the setting and just all of that. I just think that towards the end, the plot kind of lost me. There was like a strange, unexpected romance that didn't really feel like it made sense for the story because there really was no warning or slow burn or anything. It just kind of came out of nowhere, in my opinion. This is another really good book to add to your fall TBR. I know so many people who absolutely love this one. I honestly just thought it was a bit forgettable for me and I probably won't reread it, so I'm going to unhaul it. And next we have The Shadows Between Us by Trisha Levenseller. This is a pretty good, I would say, a little bit mediocre fantasy YA romance, and I liked this book. I feel like I flew through it pretty quickly, but it just wasn't something that's going to stick out or make me want to reread. I honestly haven't thought about this book and since I finished it. I do know the second book came out pretty recently. I forget the title, but it's really pretty. It has like pink sprayed edges. I will say this book has one of the best starting lines of all time in any book that I've ever read. First line of chapter 1 says, "They've never found the body of the first and only boy who broke my heart, and they never will." That honestly sucked me in and made me want to read more, but I don't know, it just kind of slowed down towards the middle and I was just like not super gripped by the story. But a brief summary of the plot: we have our main character Alessandra. Her whole plan is to basically go meet the Shadow King, make him fall in love with her, kill him, and then take the kingdom for herself. So you definitely have a little bit of a slow burn enemies to lovers romance here, which is pretty good. Wasn't the most memorable read for me, but honestly, give it a shot, you might like it. Now this one I've had on my shelves for quite a long time, I would say a couple years. I first was drawn to this because it's a ghost story set on the Titanic. And if you know me, I'm absolutely obsessed with all things Titanic. I think I memorized the entire movie back to front, and I just have this fascination, I think, with the movie and the event itself. And this book I tried to read, I got like a few chapters in, and it just wasn't really giving ghost story. It wasn't really giving Titanic. It kind of focused more on like scenes that happened before she got on the ship. And I looked up some reviews on Goodreads and a lot of people were saying like, yeah, this doesn't really have much to do with the Titanic. The ghost story isn't really a ghost story. And I was just like, dang it. Like it really let me down because I was looking forward to that kind of vibe. And I think that this is probably just one of those books that maybe isn't marketed correctly or isn't exactly what it looks like. So that was kind of a disappointment. I know this book is not super popular at all. I'd never actually heard of it. I just saw it in a bookstore bookstore one day and it looked good, so I bought it. But if you've read this and you're like, no, it's actually really good, it does give Ghost Story Titanic, let me know, because I still would like to potentially try this out. Maybe I'll get on my Kindle or something and read it later. But if you have a really good argument that will convince me to read this book, then please let me know, because I am still interested in it. I just have heard from so many reviews that it's just not what you think it's gonna be, so that bummed me out, but I don't know, there's still a chance. Next up, we have A Man Called Uva. I think it's, I mean, it looks like Ove, but in the audiobook it's Uva. So this is by Frederick Backman. It took me 4 tries to say that name. I don't think I've had enough coffee today. Anyways, I started listening to this on audio and I was just really bored. I had a really hard time holding my attention to this book because it reads very dull, and I know that's bad because I know this is a very well-loved book. I hear that it's emotionally gripping and that it really pulls on your heartstrings, and I'm sure that's true, but I think I read or I listened to about 25% of it and just nothing really happened. It's kind of just a day-to-day telling of this man's experience and how much he just hates everyone and everything, and I know that that turns around, and I know there's a lot of character development for him, and I know there's a reason that he is the way that he is, but I don't know, it just wasn't really pulling me in. So this is another one of those books where if you think I should give this a second chance, please let me know. I'll get it on my Kindle and see what it's all about. Okay, and then we have The 5-Star Weekend by Ellen Hilderbrand. This is an author that I've been wanting to try for a very long time. I bought this book actually to read on vacation. I went to Hawaii a few months ago and I thought it'd be the perfect beach read, and I don't know if I just wasn't in the mood for it at the time, but I started reading a few chapters and it felt like too much. Like, I am not 100% sure at this time if her writing is for me. I think that there was just a lot of extra details and backgrounds on different characters that aren't even main characters, and that's a little bit of a struggle that I have with some contemporary romances, or I guess some just contemporary fiction in general, is when the plot isn't really there. It's mostly about the characters, and we just learn so much about so many characters and what they did for lunch 5 years ago and their junior high school teacher, and like just all these details that I'm like, it doesn't have anything to do with the actual plot. And I know that's a whole writing style, I know that's a whole genre, but I just don't know if that style of writing is for me. I do think that lately, at least, I've preferred books that are fast-paced, that have a really, really well-developed plot, tons of world building, really interesting characters, and I think this is just more of like a day-to-day 5 friends go on vacation and it's sort of just like their experience. And there may be a time in the future where I'm in the mood to just sit down and read something like this, but I just don't see that happening anytime soon. I don't know, maybe I just need convincing to read more of Ellen Hilderbrand and just give her another chance, and maybe I just need to branch out of all the dark fantasy that I read, because this is polar opposite of what I'm used to. But I don't know, maybe I'll like it. For now, I'm unhauling it. The next book I am unhauling is Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. I read this years ago, absolutely loved it. It was incredible. That plot twist was unforgettable, and the movie is incredible too. I just don't think I need this on my shelves because I've already read it, because I probably won't reread it, and it can go to someone who is going in blind, because that's honestly the best way to go into this book, is knowing nothing about it, especially if you don't know the plot twist. I know this is a really popular thriller, but I just don't think I need it on my shelves anymore, really. I love the bold text on the background. It's so in your face. It's like ingenious, irresistible, terrifying, razor sharp, wickedly clever, menacing, sinister, like very in your face. I also feel like it's a really cool cover for thriller. I really like simple book covers when it comes to thrillers. And then we have Persons of Rank by Anna Jacobs. I picked this up a long time ago. I think it was in like a Sam's Club back when I was in my historical romance era. I mean, I'm always willing to pick up a historical romance because I love the genre. Something about this one just makes me feel like I'm not gonna like it. I don't know if it's the cover. I don't know if it's like because I've never heard of this author or this title before, which is super judgmental for me to say. Like, I shouldn't not be interested in a book just because I've never heard of it. I actually think that's one of the most fun things about being a reader, is when you discover a book that you've either never heard before or is very unpopular, and you just saw it in a bookstore one day and you're like, that looks good, and it ends up being one of your favorite books of all time. I feel like that's probably the best feeling ever. And maybe I'm just giving up too early on this, but again, I think that I just don't need it on my shelves because I haven't felt super drawn to pick this up and there's honestly just so many historical romances that I want to read. I really want to get into Lisa Kleypas. Julia Quinn has a whole backlist other than Bridgerton that I would love to read, so I just don't see myself picking this one up anytime soon. All right, we're almost getting to the end here. We have a few more books. So this is Salt Kiss by Sierra Simone. This is a very dark modern romance. I have to give it to Sierra Simone. Her writing is absolutely beautiful. It really sucks you in, but I felt like this romance was just a bit too insta love for me. I didn't really enjoy the way it developed. It just kind of really didn't do much for me. I just prefer a slow burn. I feel like it's so much more satisfying when we get to see a lot of will they, won't they. We get to see tension between the two characters, and I feel like the main character was pretty obsessed with the love interest right off the bat, which is fine. It's just not my personal favorite trope in a book. The cover is beautiful though. Like, I'm a sucker for flowers. I'm a sucker for these colors, but I only rated this book about a 2.5, 3 star, and I just don't think I need to keep it. Oh, and I forgot, this is like a poly relationship too. Like, the main character falls in love with a husband and a wife. He was super obsessed with the husband, but then he was also in love with the wife, but I didn't understand why he would be in love with the wife. Like, it just didn't really make a lot of sense to me. So yeah, this didn't really do it for me, sadly, because I know a lot of people love this. Next up is another book by Sierra Simone. This is another dark romance, and I have heard incredible things. And the thing is, I'm no stranger to dark romance. I actually love the genre, but I have to be in a very specific mood for it. I was actually ready to sit down and dive into this book, but I read the content warning, and I don't have many triggers at all when it comes to dark romance, but I do have one, and this is in that book. And I immediately was just like, I can't do it. I can't do it, which is fine, because around here we are all advocates for protecting your mental health and reading books that aren't going to be bad for you. And honestly, I'm bummed because I feel like the premise of this is something I'd be like super into, but just reading that, I know it's going to be off limits for me. So sad to say, I'm unhauling this one. Last book is, I don't even have a dust jacket for it. I honestly don't know where I got this. I think I got it at the thrift store. This is Prey by Michael Crichton. I have read a book by Michael Crichton before and I loved it. It's like sci-fi mixed with a little bit of fantasy. Not me realizing that Michael Crichton is the author of Jurassic Park, and I also have that on my shelves. To be completely honest, I think I bought this book because I wanted a good coffee table book because it's neutral, it's black and silver, and I thought it would match my home decor. Yeah, I'm remembering that is why I bought this, and I'm not ashamed to say that, but I probably will be getting rid of it because I don't think I'll read it. If I do read it, I'll probably buy like an actual copy of it that has a cover. So yeah, let's normalize buying books because they'll match your decor, and that's just a girlhood experience. I don't make the rules. Okay, so those are all the books that I'm unhauling. I'm gonna go ahead and take them over to the used bookstore and see if we can get something out of them. I will report back soon. Okay, that was pretty successful. They ended up offering me $49 of store credit or $15 cash, which of course I ended up taking the store credit because honestly I probably would have spent that cash on books anyway, so this way I can get more books out of it. I also didn't end up getting any new books while I was in there today, but I did film a little bit. I wasn't going to film them going through my books though because I just felt weird. I honestly just get really shy to film in public because it just doesn't feel natural. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and end this video here. I need to head home because I am starving to death. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure you're following me on Instagram and Goodreads. That way you can follow what I'm reading in real time and see my reactions and updates. And also make sure you're subscribed if you're not already, and I'll see you in my next video.